Deputy Speaker, just to rise to make a brief intervention in support of the bill that is before this Honourable House, the Unauthorized Disclosure of Official Information Bill 2023. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I rise to support the bill because I think it's a timely bill. We are living in an era now where there has been an explosion, and I have to use the term explosion, on social media of everything and anything, and from anybody and everybody. And sometimes that includes public officials who feel empowered to just post anything they feel they can post. And in so doing, sometimes they're trying to seek to embarrass people, embarrass permanent secretaries, embarrass government ministers, embarrass an office. And a lot of the times they do so with no remorse. And public officials sometimes, they do these things because they know there are no penalties. They know that it is difficult, many of the times, to take disciplinary action on civil servants. They know there's a long process before you can get disciplined, or before you can be terminated, or be fired, like we were 2 years ago. Yes. And so, I didn't leak any information. And so, Madam Deputy Speaker, a lot of the times, officers do these things because they know, I can do it, because nothing is going to happen. And it's about time that people realize that there are consequences to your actions. And when people act maliciously, they should be penalized in some way. And so when I look at the bill, and I look at what penalties are and what the infringements could be, I have to commend the government for putting this bill in place, commend the mover. When we look at things like national security, things like international relations, there should be secrets there that should not be released. And in so releasing could endanger even relations with other states. When I look at Section 8, and I am particularly liking the section that speaks to cabinet, because I'm part of a cabinet in Nevis, and of course we all know as members of cabinet that they are very sensitive. Most of the time there's some very sensitive information that comes before the cabinet. And sometimes not even the persons closest to you should be privy to the information that comes before the cabinet. And so when I see this section here that says the official record of any deliberation or decision of cabinet, information that has been prepared by a minister of government or on his behalf, or by a public officer for the purpose of submission for consideration by cabinet, or a document which has been considered by cabinet and which is related to issues that are or have been before cabinet, information prepared for the purpose of briefing a minister of government in relation to the issues to be discussed by cabinet, information about a cabinet submission or other cabinet communication, information about a confidential ministerial communication. These are all very, very confidential matters, Madam Deputy Speaker. And if tomorrow, if we have cabinet today and tonight, or tomorrow, we get up and we realize that what we discussed in cabinet today is all over Facebook tonight, or maybe an hour after that was discussed, somebody should be brought to justice for that. And it is said, yes, sometimes Our colleagues are guilty. And so if one of our colleagues are guilty, they should pay the penalty. They should pay the penalty. Because we all took an oath. That might have to happen. We all took an oath, Madam Deputy Speaker. And we are not the only ones who took an oath, because to my knowledge, persons who are in the civil service, they should have also taken an oath as well. And so they have a responsibility that documents or information that should be kept confidential should be kept confidential at all times. And so I am in full support of this bill, because persons need to be held accountable when they maliciously do these things. And I believe most of the times when people are doing these things now, they are maliciously doing them to try to embarrass somebody, try to make somebody look bad. And of course, we know we live in a small society. And people do a lot of things for political reasons, unfortunately. And as I said, people were doing them because nothing was happening. Things come out on Facebook all the time and nothing happens, you know. People get upset. Government ministers get upset. Permanent secretaries get upset, but nothing happens. And so it's about time that we put something in place, that we enact laws to ensure that something will happen. And there's a consequence. But when you decide to do bad, deliberately, I think people should pay. And when I look at the penalties, I think the penalties are in order. It says here, a person who commits an offense under any provision of this act, other than Action 10(1), etc., shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $20,000. Sometimes people have to feel it in their pocket. Or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, or to both. Or B, on conviction or indictment to a fine not exceeding $100,000. I hope people are listening. $100,000. Or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or both. And so, if people decide they can do what they want, and they can post what they want, and they can bring out whatever information they want, and there are no penalties, well, going forward, this bill or this act will ensure that that doesn't happen anymore. And people will be penalized, people will be punished, and they will be punished in their pocket or over in 1840. One thing I wanted to draw to the attention of the AG, though, in the bill, it says, several times it says, a person who is or has been a public officer or public contractor. And I do not have the legal eye. So I am wondering here whether it is stating that if you fail to be a public officer tomorrow, if tomorrow you can release certain information and there is no penalty, or whether there will be a penalty. Because I know there are certain times when you get a job, whether with the government or with the private sector, and you cannot do something when you're there, and then it takes you over a particular period, maybe a year, when you cannot act a certain way either. So I don't know whether or not that is clear here in this bill, Mr. AG, or whether or not that has to be cleared up in the bill, whether or not when you are not an official member of the government, for example, if you retire tomorrow and you have that information, seeing you're not in the civil service, can you release it? And will you pay a fine? Will you pay the penalty? So maybe that is something that we need to clarify in this bill. But generally, as I said, I'm in full support of the bill, because I'm in full support of persons when they do mischief, that they should pay, and pay a hefty fine. May it please you, Madam Deputy Speaker.